The magnanimous lord received them very happily, and indicated how pleased he was with the captain. And placing the prisoners under heavy guard, the emperor had the constables go into the chambers where the empress and the princess were. He asked them about everything at the encampment, and the constable told him, adding, "Tonight or tomorrow Deiphobus will be here with the nobleman that he is bringing as prisoner." "What?" said the emperor. "Are there still more?" And his happiness grew greater than ever. The following day Deiphobus entered the center of the city with his prisoners, while his trumpets and tambourines played. The emperor and all the people were astonished at the great multitude of prisoners. When they were at the square in front of the palace, the emperor was at the window. Deiphobus bowed deeply to him, and quickly went up to his chambers to kiss his hand, and then did the same to the empress and the princess. After he had embraced all the ladies, he turned back to the emperor and gave him the good wishes Trnt had sent. When the emperor had spoken at length with Deiphobus, he had the prisoners placed in the strongest tower they had. When Deiphobus had the opportunity, he went to the princess's chamber and found her with all her maidens. When the princess saw him, she got up to go to him. Deiphobus hurried towards her and knelt and kissed her hand, saying, "This kiss is from someone whom your highness has condemned to a stronger prison than the one that the prisoners I have brought are in." As the maidens approached, he could say nothing further, for fear they might hear him. But she took him by the hand, and they went to the window seat. Then the princess summoned Stephanie, and Deiphobus said, "Your highness should not forget such a noble knight, and the lack of liberty he has since the moment he saw you." Smiling, the princess answered, "O Deiphobus, my brother, I receive your words as the vassal of your lord, and I return his wishes just as strongly, and even more so." As they were speaking, the emperor came in and saw Deiphobus deeply involved in conversation with his daughter, and he said, "Upon my father's bones, what a wonderful sight to see how these maidens like to hear of the exploits of the good knights." And he told his daughter to leave the room and to go out to the main plaza in the marketplace. Deiphobus went with the emperor, and he came back to escort the empress and the princess. When they were in the marketplace, they saw a large cenotaph that the emperor had made, entirely covered with the cloth of gold and silk. When all the ladies had been seated, the emperor commanded that all the prisoners be brought out, and they were ordered to sit on the ground, Moors as well as Christians. Then the people were silenced, and the following proclamation was read. "We, Frederick, by divine grace, Emperor of the Greek Empire of Constantinople, Frederick, by divine grace, Emperor of the Greek Empire of Constantinople, so that it may be known and made manifest to the whole world how these wicked knights and unfaithful Christians have accepted payment from the infidel, and taking up arms have united with them in waging war against Christianity, they are deserving of great punishment, and of being removed from the order of chivalry, and disinherited by the nobility from which they are descended, so that it may be a punishment for them, an example for all others. We pronounce them traitors to all Christians here present, and we sentence them to be dealt with as all such traitors against God and the world." When the sentence had been read, 12 knights came out dressed in long robes and hoods, and the emperor dressed in a similar fashion. Then they had the men rise from the ground, and they were brought up to the cenotaph, where they were armed and then degraded as is done with evil knights, and then they were returned to prison. Then the emperor said, "Let there be justice, and let us show mercy to no one." The Duke of Macedonia's squire was brought out with a large chain around his neck. He was condemned to die, hanging upside down for all the anguish he had caused. When Deiphobus saw the squire, he hurried to the emperor and knelt at his feet, begging him not to have the squire killed, so that that wicked people could not say that it had been done because he had spoken badly about his captain. When the princess saw that Deiphobus' words were futile, she too came and knelt at the emperor's feet to beg him. And when that proved futile, the empress and all the maidens came to plead for his life as well. The emperor said, "Who has ever seen a death sentence revoked that has been handed down by the general council? I never have done it, nor will I do it now." The princess caught his hands, pretending to kiss them, and she stealthily removed the ring from his finger without his noticing it, and said to him, Is it not your majesty's custom to be so cruel as to sentence anyone to die with such pain?" The emperor said, "My child, change his death sentence as you wish." The princess handed the ring to Deiphobus, and he rode swiftly to where they were holding the execution, and gave the ring to the constable. The squire was already on the ladder, about to be executed, and Deiphobus grabbed him and took him to his lodgings. When Deiphobus left to go to the palace, the squire quickly ran to the monastery of San Francisco, where he became a friar. The next day, the emperor sent all the Turks who had not been ransomed to other places to be sold: Venice, Sicily, Rome, and Italy. Those that could not be sold were traded for arms, horses, or food. When it came time for the constable and Deiphobus to leave, the emperor took as much gold from his treasury as he received from the ransom of the prisoners, and sent it along with them for the captain. The day before they were to leave, Deiphobus discovered that the emperor had retired, and he went to the princess's chamber. The first one he met there was Stephanie, and he bowed deeply on one knee and said, "Gentle lady, I would consider myself most fortunate man alive if you would accept me as your closest servant. I love you above all the ladies in the world." At that moment, the emperor's chamberlain came in and told him that the emperor wished to speak to him. Deiphobus begged Stephanie to wait for him there, and said that he would return as quickly as he could. When the emperor saw Deiphobus, he told him that he and the constable were to leave before nightfall. Deiphobus returned to the chamber and found his lady deep in thought, and with tears in her eyes, because she knew that the emperor summoned him only to tell him that he must leave. Deiphobus, seeing her so disconsolate, tried to show her that it was hurting him even more to leave. While they were consoling each other this way, the princess came into the chamber from the treasure tower, wearing a blouse and skirt of white damask, her hair falling down to her shoulders because it was so warm. When she saw Deiphobus, she tried to turn back, but Deiphobus blocked her way. "Shall I tell you something?" said the princess. "I don't care what happens in your presence. You are like a brother to me." Player de mi vida spoke up. "My lady, can your highness see Stephanie's face? It looks like she's been blowing on fire. Her face is as red as a rose in May. I can't imagine that Deiphobus' hands were idle while they were in the tower. We should have known he'd be here. She was here with that thing she loves the most. I tell you, if I had a lover, I'd play with him too, the way both of you do. But I'm a barren woman, and I have no one to love. Lord Deiphobus, do you know that I was in love with all my heart? Hippolytus, Trnt's page, and if he were a knight, I'd love him even more." "I promise you," said Deiphobus, "that in the next battle I take part in, he will be made a knight." And they joked this way for a long while. Then the princess said, "Do you know something, Deiphobus? When I turn around and look everywhere in the palace, and I don't see Trnt, I feel as though I'm dying. I want you to take him all my good wishes, and along with them, wrapped up so that no one will see them, half the load of gold a horse can carry, so that he may spend it as he wishes. And when it is gone, I will give him even more. I don't want him or his men to lack for anything. Also, an aunt of mine left me a county called St. Angel in her will. I want Trnt to have it, and for him to be named the Count of St. Angel. So if it becomes known that I love Trnt, at least they will say that I am in love with a count." Deiphobus was astonished when he heard the princess uttering words filled with so much love, and he said, "I don't feel capable of thanking you for the honor you are bestowing on Trnt. So I beg you, on behalf of that famous knight, and then on behalf of all of us, of his lineage, allow me to kiss your hands and feet." Stephanie was so bursting with love that she could not contain herself any longer, and she said, "I'm envious of what your excellency is doing for that glorious knight Trnt, and since I must imitate your highness, allow me to give everything I have to Deiphobus here." And she got up and went into her chamber. There she wrote out a document that she placed in her bosom, and then she went back out to the princess. Meanwhile, Deiphobus had been pressing the princess to allow him to kiss her, but the princess would not give her consent. Then Deiphobus said, Oh, how blind I've been! I would have given my life 100 times to do some service for your Majesty, and your Highness will not allow me the pleasure of even a small part of the fruit. From now on, find yourself another brother and servant to be at your side. I don't imagine for a minute that I'll say anything to Trnt on your behalf, and even less that I'll take him the money. As soon as I reach the camp, I'll take my leave of him and go back to my own country. But someday you'll be sorry I left." Just then the emperor came into the chamber and told Deiphobus that he should get ready to leave that same evening. "Sire," said Deiphobus, "I've just come from our lodging and everyone is ready to leave." The emperor then brought him out of the chamber and led him through the palace, reminding both him and the constable of what they were to do. "Oh, poor me," said the princess. "Look how angry Deiphobus was. I don't think he'd want to do anything for me now. Stephanie, beg him for my love not to be angry." "I certainly will," said Stephanie. Davida spoke up. "Oh, what a strange one you are, my lady. At a time when we're at war, you don't know how to hold the friendship of these knights. They put themselves in danger to defend your Highness and the entire empire, and you raise a ruckus over a kiss. What's wrong with kissing? In France, it doesn't mean anything more than a handshake. If he wanted to kiss you, you should have let him, and you should have done the same even if he'd wanted to put his hand under your skirts when there are times of great need like we have now. Later on, when we have peace, then you can make virtue out of vice. Good woman, how deceived you are." Stephanie had already left, so the princess went to her room and begged her to go and bring back Deiphobus. "Now I'm afraid he really will leave, just like the way he said he would. And if he goes away, it won't be surprising if Trnt leaves too. And even if he doesn't, because of his love for me, many others will go too. And then, just when we thought we were winning, we would lose." "Don't make things so hard," said Player Damavida. "Don't send anyone else. Your Highness, it would be better if you went yourself on the pretext of seeing the emperor. Then talk to him, and his anger will disappear quickly." The princess hurried to her father and found him talking. When he had finished, she took Deiphobus aside and pleaded with him not to be angry with her. Deiphobus replied, "Madam, it has to be one of two things, either a kiss or leave. If you give me what I'm asking for, then you can command me to do anything, or just or unjust, and I will do it." Since you won't wait for the one who holds my heart captive," said the princess, "kiss, kiss." Deiphobus knelt on the hard floor and kissed her hand. Then he went over to Stephanie and kissed her 3 times on the lips for the Holy Trinity. Stephanie said, "Since at your great insistence and by command of my lady I have kissed you, I give you my permission to take possession of me, but only from the waist up." Deiphobus was not slow to follow her request. He immediately put his hands on her breasts, touching her nipples, and everything else that he could. His hands then found the document, and thinking it was a letter from a rival suitor, he stopped cold, almost losing his senses. "Read what is written there," said Stephanie, "and lose your suspicions." The princess took the document from Deiphobus' hand and read it. "I, Stephanie of Macedonia, daughter of the illustrious Prince Robert, Duke of Macedonia, promise you, Deiphobus of Montalt, to take you as my husband and lord. And looking towards our marriage, I bring you the Duchy of Macedonia with all the rights belonging thereto, in testimony of which I sign and seal my own name in my own blood, Stephanie of Macedonia."